How is it going, guys? I'm making a response video for HLG Legacy. For those of you who haven't seen his video, he basically went on a little rant, about 11.5 minute rant, talking about how Cam Newton is overrated, he's garbage, he's just not a good quarterback. He's not worthy of being in the top 25 of the NFL top 100, or even for that matter, being in the top 100, period. So I decided to come up with something a little different because I wanted to show a lot of different numbers, and I felt like this would be the best way for me to do it because, well, frankly, I'm not an editor, but I can do a PowerPoint, so that's what I did. What we have here, this is the truth about Cam Newton. Alright, in this first slide, I just wanted to play a few seconds of both videos. It's not so important what he is saying, but it's more important the demeanor. So if we play, go ahead and play a little bit of both. Now keep in mind that in both of these press conferences, we have a losing record. All right. Notice how on the one on the right, you see that Cam Newton is he's speaking a lot faster. He's making more eye contact, and he's actually has a pretty confident stance about him. He's not making excuses, and he's not pouting. On the one here, look how he almost looks like really sad. He's mumbling his answers to the questions, and you can tell he really doesn't want to be there. And not that it's any easier to lose now. Let's keep in mind, in this press conference here, this was after we lost to Arizona. We were 1-3 at that point, but you can tell that there was no give up in Cam Newton at this point. As a matter of fact, let's keep on listening.
Capitalize on our mistakes. And like I say, when we come in a hostile environment, we can't expect to win games like this when you turn the ball over 3+ times, and you go over in the red zone. Look at the tape, and we're not in panic mode. We have to.
We're not in panic mode. See, that's a very key thing, because Cam Newton kind of has that reputation for being a crybaby, and you can see there he has a lot of poise. So I don't really know why people keep saying that. He has matured a lot since his first 2 seasons. Now, the next issue, basically HLG Legacy, he was going on how Andrew Luck is his second favorite quarterback, and basically he deserves to be higher on the top 100 list than Cam Newton, and how he managed to make the playoffs and this, that, and the other. But if you look at the difference in the opponent winning percentage, in terms of who Andrew Luck had to play against, who Andy Dalton had to play against, and who Cam Newton had to play against, there's really no comparison. For Andrew Luck, as you can see, his opponents in his first 2 years as a quarterback was a 237 and 275 record. So 38 games. His opponents have been 38 games below 500. And then with Andy Dalton, it's like 47 games below 500. And I should also mention that in Andy Dalton's toughest season as a quarterback, and he's been in the league the same amount of time as Cam Newton, even in his toughest season, has been slightly easier than our easiest season. which was, by the way, last season in 2013. With Andrew Luck, the teams, what's considered the kind of teams that Andrew Luck was playing last year. He had to play the 4-12 Oakland Raiders, Jacksonville Jaguars twice, Houston Texans twice, the Tennessee Titans twice. I mean, basically the easiest division in the league. He also had the 7-9 Rams, who they lost to badly. They were embarrassed, like 40-11. Meanwhile, Cam Newton and the Panthers, we beat the Rams. We doubled them up. We beat them 30-15. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Cam Newton doesn't even have as many playoff wins as Tim Tebow. But my response to that is very simple. What team does Tim Tebow play for now? Yeah, that's what I thought. Uh-oh. Let's see what Cam and Smitty had to say. HLG Legacy be talking out his ass, bro. And then Smitty says, haha, ice up, son. Alright, so then there's the issue of, well, I would take Robert Griffin III over Cam Newton. Here are some basic facts that you need to know about Robert Griffin. First of all, Robert Griffin, despite playing, 13 games last year, something like that, he had 0 rushing touchdowns. So he's not even as good of a rusher as Cam. Fact, Robert Griffin has had 23 fumbles in only 28 starts. Cam Newton has had 18 fumbles in 48 starts. There's a big difference there. And also, Cam Newton had 6 rushing touchdowns in 2013. Fact, Robert Griffin has never thrown for over 3,300 yards in his career. Granted, he's only been in the league for 2 years, but Cam Newton has thrown for over 3,300 yards in all 3 of his seasons, so there's reason to believe that Cam Newton is a better passer, and he's a better runner. And this last one is my opinion, but Robert Griffin is a fragile-ass bitch. And the reason I say that is because he's shown durability concerns. Cam Newton has played in all 49 starts. Robert Griffin, he missed an important playoff game against Seattle. I mean, not that can't happen to other quarterbacks, but I mean, there's a difference between a guy who's 215 pounds and a guy who's 245, 250. Who do you think is going to be more durable and harder to break? Exactly. So then, why don't we compare Cam Newton versus second-tier quarterbacks? First of all, Cam Newton has had 13,331 combined yards, rushing and passing. And I know some people want to say, well, a lot of that's rushing. Yeah, sure. But you have to add in that element. Because the fact is, it helped us beat New England. Without Cam Newton's legs, we wouldn't have beaten New England. We wouldn't have beaten Miami. It's an important factor. Cam Newton has had 92 combined touchdowns in 3 seasons. And Cam Newton has 48 combined turnovers. That's interception and that's also lost fumbles. Now let's see who he's up against. Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton, Eli Manning, and Tony Romo in the past 3 seasons. How does he measure up? First of all, Ben Roethlisberger, 11,864 combined yards, 76 touchdowns and 50 turnovers. Ben Roethlisberger has one of the best tight ends in the league. He had Jericho Cotchery. He had Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, he has some pretty good skill players. Yet, as we can see, not as good. And I would bold it if it was better than Cam Newton. But on all 3 fronts, Cam Newton is better than Ben Roethlisberger. Next, Phillip Rivers, 12,856 combined yards, 86 touchdowns. You would think he's a big, 86. All of Phillip Rivers' touchdowns are passing. Meanwhile, for Cam Newton, I would say about, I think, 64 of the 92 touchdowns are passing, but still. And Phil Rivers has had 12 more turnovers than Cam Newton, 48 as compared to 60. Then you have Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, you say, is the second best quarterback in the NFC South. Well, let's look at it. He does have a few more passing, or combined yards rather, 13,691. You know, a little over 300 more. But on the flip side, he doesn't have as many touchdowns. He has 2 less, and he has 4 more turnovers. So, I mean, and on top of that, let's also consider he, for most of his career, has had a better offensive line than Cam, and he's had Julio Jones, who is a top 3 wide receiver. Roddy White is a solid number 2, and then you have a Hall of Famer, Tony Gonzalez. Who has Cam Newton had? I guess Steve Smith at the end of his prime, and then also Greg Olsen. But I would take Matt Ryan's weapons over Cam Newton. You got to wonder how well would Cam Newton play with Matt Ryan's weapons. And Cam Newton still beats him on 2 out of 3 categories. Matthew Stafford actually beats Cam Newton on 2 out of 3 categories. More combined yards, more touchdowns, but also more turnovers as well. And but the thing about Matthew Stafford, I mean, how is his team? How does his team do every year? I mean, it seems like they're in the 4 to 6 win range every year. Andy Dalton, less combined yards, less touchdowns, and more turnovers, and yet he's had much simpler schedules than what the Carolina Panthers have faced with Cam Newton. Eli Manning, not even close. Like 600, almost 600 less combined yards, nearly 20 less touchdowns, and close to 20 more turnovers, not even close. And then finally, Tony Romo. He's the only quarterback on here who has had less turnovers than Cam Newton in the last 3 years. But he too has less combined yards, and also he has the same number of touchdowns. But again, Tony Romo, how is he done? How is his team done? Now, some of that is not his fault. His defense has been terrible, but at the same time, Tony Romo is he seems to lack the clutch gene. Now here we see Cam Newton obviously has a towel on, but is he pouting? I don't think so. I see dimples here. I don't see tears. I don't see him with his head down. And the question goes, well, he has a towel on his head. Why isn't he pouting? And the answer is maybe because you haters spend too much time watching SportsCenter and don't realize Cam keeps a towel on his head regardless of the scoreboard. And there you go. Just something for you to think about, HLG Legacy. Back to you.